chess, nonsense, and analysis. Welcome, dear viewer. And yeah, today we look at the action from this incredibly strong event at the UAE, the Sharjah Masters. And yeah, I had before highlighted, I think from round two, whilst we're still looking at the African individual, we did have a look at one of the rounds. So we just want to take the action from here on. Today was round six, and basically that's the game that we're going to have a look at. Played between one of the favorites in the tournaments, one of the favorite players, Maksudlu Parham from Iran, who Super GM was played against Anish Giri. And yeah, let's have a look at what happened. A very interesting game. Yeah, let's jump into it. So D4 was played by Parham, D5, and it's an invitation to a Slav. Knight F3, knight plays E3, and knight D2. It's not a main line, but it's one of the theoretical lines. Basically, the idea of knight D2 is to really sort of discourage D takes C4, because then maybe white could take with the knight on C4 in these lines, and make it difficult for black to break out. Yeah, because black would love to play either C5 or E5. Okay, bishop D3, plays knight D7, and queen C2. Normal way of development, and it played H6. This is still theory. It has been played before. Rook D1. All normal moves. And here, well, I checked the database, and B6 has been played here before, and another move, I think DC4, but I know that B6 was played before. But so Giri plays C5. So a new idea in the position, but very logical, attacking the center. So the players are sort of having a fresh position on the board. D takes C5, knight takes C5, bishop E2. Yeah, although it looks like white has lost some time with this, but look, the pressure on the D file is telling, and it's not that easy for black to develop the pieces. And look, the knight on C5, although it looks well placed for now, but it can always be attacked with B4. And, bishops will come into play. So there is some small advantage for white. Giri plays B6, A3, preparing, of course, to play this B4. So that is then protected. A5 is not a move in these structures, because you would be making the B5 square weak. And if we're to imagine the knight at some stage, well, I'm saying at some stage because you don't have to play it directly immediately, right? You can also wait. But at some stage, the knight will land on D4 and look at all those weaknesses, B5, C6, and so on. So that's not what you want to give the opponent. So bishop B7 is logical. Plays B4, knight D7, decides to take on C5, which is a logical move because the rook is going to come to C8, right? So it takes on C5. Knight takes C5, bishop B2, rook C8, and queen B3. Let's talk about this position. And once again, slightly more comfortable for white. The rook on D1 is actually quite well placed. Black has got some issues with the queen. What to do with this queen for now? Because, if black waits for too long, white could play moves like a knight C4, and then at some point an E4, and then that pin along the D file could tell. And okay, both sides have got weaknesses. I mean, in a sense that white square D3 is weak, C4 is weak, but black also has D6. But the difference now is that white's pieces are placed in such a way that this could come under threat, with knight c4 or knight e4 in some lines. So queen c7 is completely logical because that is that queen that is a problem, right? So they're maneuvering here. It's one of the most difficult parts of the game because that's where you can make a strategic mistake. So queen c7, the idea is to then put the queen on b8 eventually. So for example, if rook goes to c1, then the queen will slide back to b8. The queen on b8, the argument is that it is having an influence in the center, controls the square e5, and protects that square d6. Remember, we said that d6 has got a problem. So this is and I would suggest, viewers, if you want to improve, this is the part where you want to really have a look. That's why I'm going over this part, because this is the most important part, really. Because imagine you've studied the opening, you come out of the opening, now you're in the middle game, but the middle game is where you really have to now start thinking what to do. How do I play? Where do I place my pieces? What is it that I'm looking at? What should guide me? And I think, yeah, when one follows games by strong players like this, it rubs off. You start to pick up ideas, and those can be useful in your game. So anyway, bishop b5 is played. So very interesting, this bishop b5, because bishop b5, it puts well, because remember, Black's plan we said was queen b8, and is asking questions, on the knight on d7, but not only on the knight, but there's a pattern, because remember, the rook is eyeing down that file. So at some stage, if the knight moves, then we could be threatening some e4s, or to take and play e4. So there are always some tactics that are linked with that on the d5. So that is why knight f6 is played. Notice that you cannot, unfortunately, well, you can, but it's if you move this knight, you have to worry about moves like bishop e5 at some stage. That's one. But also, this knight is not so well secured. Yeah, if white could at some point, I'm not saying immediately, but if at some point, as I'm mentioning it, play g3 and then follow it up with e4, the pieces that are starting to be awkward. Then there's always that bishop e5, and black is not solving the problems in such a manner. So that's hence Giri plays the knight from d5 to f6. And by the way, here there are some ideas that black is having. For example, bishop to d5 for black, and then followed by queen to b7. A reshuffling of the pieces like that would immediately mean that black takes the white squares, puts pressure along this a8 to h1 diagonal. So some ideas. It makes a lot of sense to play like this, yeah? So rook c1, queen b8, as mentioned. Queen a4. Queen a4 puts pressure on attacking the d7 knight. But not only the d7 knight, you see, in such positions, dear viewer, it's also important to check where the pawns are. And if you look at these black pawns, the pawns on a7 and b6, it means that the white squares could be weak. And then the white squares being weak means that the b7 bishop is an important piece. So there are a number of ideas that come with queen a4. Of course, we're putting pressure on d7, but there's this idea just to play bishop a6 and trade the bishop as well, and then try to attack the white squares. There's an idea to increase the pressure on c6, maybe with some knight d4. So we can see there's a lot of solving that black it has to do. But okay, Giri is experienced and handles this nicely. Swaps first the pair of rooks and plays rook d8. h3 is played. It's a prophylactic move because, in these positions, a move like, let's say, knight g4. You see, whenever we're looking at these positions, we're always looking at patterns. So although knight g4 is not going to be playable now, but if you do move your knight and knight g4 comes with the threat of bishop takes f3 and queen takes h2. So all these are possible. So h3 is some kind of a multi-purpose move. You are creating a luft for the king, and you are stopping some knight g4s. a5 is a classic move. I really like a5. a5 is a very nice idea by Giri, and what a way to solve his problem. This is a very classy move. Shows the quality that of Giri, because he wants to create space for his pieces. And unfortunately, he cannot fight for the c5 because of pressure on the knight on d7. So this a5, the idea is to create a c5, a home for his pieces on c5. If indeed white takes, if white does not take, then black himself can take on b4, and then we create a weakness on b4 as well. There's something very interesting that I picked up as I was becoming stronger strategically, and that is the issue of weaknesses. One of the most important difficult things to do in chess is to try and create weaknesses in the opponent's position whilst creating your weaknesses in your own position. I mean, Bobby Fischer once famously said, in order to get squares, you have to give squares, so, but look, b6 pawn becomes weak, but if we take on b4, the argument is that in such situations, which square or pawn is easier to attack, right? Now, if black takes on b4 and white takes back, you immediately see that the pawn on b4 is easier to attack than the pawn on b6. It's closer to black. It's closer to black, which means that black doesn't have to go out of their way to attack it. So this is what it's about. And it explains now the next moves by Maksudlu. Takes on a5, and knight c5 is played by Giri. Yes, look, here I think Giri has equalized objectively. And Maksudlu, I'm sure he saw, okay, he can play queen c2 and takes back on a5. And this is now the pluses are slowly evaporating, and we can expect that at this level, a game like this would most probably end in a draw. It's symmetrical. There isn't much going on. The queen can freely go to a8. The bishop can come to d6 at some point. White can also. I don't think that any side is really struggling here. But so it's an equal position. So now what is of interest is that we see Maksudlu's incredible fighting spirit, and I love it. He decides to go for it. He plays an exchange sacrifice. Now this is beautiful. He plays an exchange sacrifice because he knows that because of course we cannot expect bishop takes, and the king side could be wrecked, so he takes with the pawn. And look at that move, a6. So what we're having now, we're having a passed pawn, which is on a6. That's a big thing. And there are pieces that are coming. Knight c4 is coming potentially after knight c4, because the knight attacks d6. Bishop e5 could come, and so on. So Giri plays bishop a8 and knight c4. Look at this. The position is still dynamically equal, I think. Of course, you cannot dream of giving the bishop like this, because you don't have a lot of pieces. My king will sit on g2, and the two bishops will dominate. I will play a7, bishop c6, bishop e5. I mean, very soon I will queen the pawn, and you have to give material. So you need that bishop as a defensive piece. So plays knight d5, knight e5. Yeah, I was thinking that knight e5 is fine. I mean, all these are playable moves. But another interesting idea, I think, is bishop e5 to control the black squares. And what I like about bishop e5 is that the queen is put in question. Like, where do you move your queen to? You have to be careful, because, I mean, for example, if you play queen c8, you have to reckon with e4, right? I'm making a sample example here. By no means am I saying these moves are forced, but for example, if I do this, your queen is all of a sudden caught, you see. So yeah, it's awkward. The position is indeed awkward. So black would have to play, say, queen a7, and I don't know, maybe queen c2 to maybe support this bishop with a4. It's very, very unclear, the position. The position is extremely unclear, and I think it is, look, objectively possibly unclear, but I think practically easier to play for white, because you have that pawn, and as long as you can support your pieces, like let's say you can support the bishop with the pawn on a4, and you can sit like that, and you make sure that black doesn't get out. It's a very difficult position practically for black to play. But I suspect here slowly there was mm, time trouble approaching, because it's a ridiculously complicated position as we saw. And I think here possibly Maksudlu misevaluated knight b6, because I have a feeling that he now, yeah, possibly still okay, the position. But here he goes somehow maybe wrong, yeah, with the bishop. Maybe bishop e5 was now again uh, 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 an idea, bishop e5, and if you do nothing, maybe I play queen a5, and I try to get in on the black squares. So anyway, he played bishop c3. He wanted to get in with bishop a5 in that manner, yeah, which is also understandable, because if he can play bishop a5, bishop b6, imagine, right? Making progress. The opponent played bishop f6, bishop a5, and now rook b8. So now I think, I don't know what, something went wrong somewhere, because now we can see black's pieces from the position before, they've really sort of improved. The bishop on f6 is now on a strong diagonal. The rook is attacking one of white's important pieces in relation to the pawn. No, yeah, position is still fine, but very difficult. He plays knight d6. I think now he time trouble, and he blunders tactically. Bishop e5, and here he forgets about his back rank, and queen takes a6. So yeah, a big battle is now decided. The problem is that bishop takes a6 is not possible because of rook b1 check. And whatever you close with, I just take check, 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 and checkmate. Yeah, he cannot get out. So yeah, once he loses his pawn, then it's lost, because you are just an exchange down for no compensation. And in this position, he resigned. Fantastic game, fantastic fight, very nice. And it's nice to see Giri playing this type of chess. Yeah, he's one of the players I really love to follow. And but I think his results have not been so great in recent years. So hopefully this will spur him back on. And let's have a look at what will happen tomorrow. So they played this today, and the pairing for tomorrow. So Giri is on one. He's got 5 points out of 6. He's going to play with white against Abdusatorov. Yeah, key game, very interesting. Of course, Abdusatorov, he's had a few draws before. I mean, he's got 4.5, but he's within striking distance now. If he beats Giri, he's in. Another player also has 5 points by the name of Indic, Alexander Indic, 2637, from Serbia. And he plays with the black piece against Salem. Yeah. So, yeah, Salem is 2631, also a player was 2700. Very interesting tournament. I mean, I'm just looking at the names here, and I mean, I'm looking at all these extremely strong players. And because in these opens, these strong opens, in recent years, the Indian players have been dominating. And one always has to keep an eye. It's like India is now the new Soviet Union, chess-wise, like the strongest Soviet Union was. One always has to say, well, how far, where are the Indians? How far are they? And if we look at this, we have Kartik, he's got 3.5. We've got Pranav Anand. Okay, he's got 2.5. Then there's a number of them there. We have Luke Mendonca, the youngster. He's on 3.5. and the number of the of players then, yeah, also there. So Inian and so on. So yeah, 2 rounds to go, and very, very interesting. This was a very nice game. Good to see both players playing for the win. And yeah, well, let's see what will happen tomorrow. It's very much, I'm very much interested in the game that will happen between Giri against Absatorov. A big game, and definitely cannot wait before that game starts. Yeah. So yeah, if you liked it, if you like this, guys, please comment on the video, share, and like and subscribe, please, if you have not yet subscribed. And for the guys who have subscribed, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And yeah, please have a look out tomorrow, because as I say, I really want to see what is going to happen in the game between Kiri against Abdusattorov. So yeah, all the best, dear viewers. And with that, I will say, yeah, checkmate.